January 1st, 1945, 040 hours. The world is watching the Ardennes. General Patton is hammering the southern flank of the German Bulge. The Wehrmacht's last great offensive is already dying in the snow. Allied intelligence is celebrating, confident that Berlin has spent its final reserves on a desperate gamble that is collapsing by the hour. But 100 meters south, in the frozen silence of the Vosges Mountains, something the Allies have not anticipated is happening. General Johannes Blaskowitz, commander of Army Group G, is not retreating. He is attacking. He has assembled a force that should not exist at this late hour in Germany's war. The 13th SS Corps, elements of the 21st Panzer Division, fresh from Germany and equipped with late-model Panther tanks. The elite 6th SS Mountain Division. Troops hardened by years of fighting in the Balkans and the Soviet Union. His orders from Adolf Hitler are precise and unambiguous. Operation Nordwind. The objective is stark and absolute. Strike the thinned lines of the U.S. 7th Army, shatter the American flank, recapture Strasbourg, and prove that the German military machine is not broken. On paper, it is a masterpiece of calculation. The Americans have stripped this entire sector of heavy units, sending everything north to reinforce the desperate fighting in the Bulge. The 7th Army is overextended. The line is thin. Some American infantry companies are defending frontages of 3 to 4 miles. Triple the standard doctrine, which means the line is not a line at all, but a series of desperate points of resistance waiting to be crushed by concentrated German force. This should work. This is supposed to work. But Blaskowitz is not celebrating. He is a professional soldier of the old Prussian school, trained in precision, not a fanatic clinging to Hitler's promises. He stands in his command post studying the operational map with the intensity of a man who understands. He is looking at his own defeat before it happens. And then he walks to the window. He looks out at the terrain. The Vosges Mountains stretch before him, snow-covered, vast and different. Narrow winding roads disappear into dense forests. Ravines cut the landscape into fragments. The gradients are steep. The ice beneath the roads is black and treacherous. And in that moment, Blaskowitz understands something that Berlin has ignored, something that no amount of superior armor or tactical brilliance can overcome. He is about to send 45-ton Panther tanks into a geographical meat grinder, designed by centuries of geology to trap and strangle armor. He composes warnings to OKW. The terrain will neutralize our technical superiority, he writes. The mountains are not suitable for mass tank operations. The roads cannot support the weight of concentrated armor. I recommend cancellation. The response comes within hours. It is not ambiguous. General Blaskowitz, the Führer, has decided. You will attack or you will be relieved of command. At 2,300 on New Year's Eve, German artillery opens fire across the entire sector. By 23:30, Operation Nordwind has begun. For the first 48 hours, it looks like Hitler was right. The Americans are reeling, falling back, their thin lines collapsing under the weight of the assault. But the mountains are waiting, and Blaskowitz knows what comes next. The initial assault is pure kinetic energy. When the German 361st Volksgrenadier Division hits the lines of the U.S. 45th and 79th Infantry Divisions, the American front does not hold. It bends, it cracks. The defenders, stretched impossibly thin, cannot resist the concentrated weight of German firepower and numbers. To any observer watching the maps, it looks like the summer of 1940 all over again. Speed, aggression, shock. The Wehrmacht demonstrating once more why it had conquered France in 6 weeks. But look closer at the German columns moving south from the assaillant. In the Ardennes, Septisch had rolling hills and roads that could carry an army. Here in northern Alsace, the terrain is a nightmare of sandstone crags, forested ravines, and roads that have never been designed to accommodate the weight of modern armor. The Germanplan relies on the Schwerpunkt, the concentration of armored mass, to punch through and shatter the American line. The spearhead is the 21st Panzer Division, equipped with Panther Gs and Panzeros, machines that on any open battlefield would be the dominant predators of the engagement. The Panther G is a masterpiece of engineering. Its 75mm KWK-42 gun can kill any American Sherman tank from 2,000 meters from distances where the Sherman's gun is merely ineffective. Its frontal armor is nearly immune to everything the American infantry possesses on an open field against any enemy the Americans can field. The Panther is a weapon of war that dictates the terms of battle. But a 4-5-ton tank has a specific width. The roads in the low Vosges built centuries ago for farmers' carts and timber wagons barely accommodate a single vehicle. The maximum width is exactly 3.27 meters. The Panther's width is also exactly 3.27 meters. There is no margin. There is no room to bypass an obstacle. There is no shoulder to use if the lead tank becomes disabled. By January 4th, the illusion of velocity hits a wall of physics. The German columns are no longer advancing in battle formation. They are stuck in single file, stretching back for 10 miles into the mountains. The industrial velocity that Blaskowitz had calculated as his greatest advantage, the speed that had conquered France, is dissolving into the mathematics of geography. 20 kilometers per day becomes 5. 5 becomes 2. 2 becomes 0. A Panther tank in a column is not a weapon of war. It is a traffic jam with a cannon. If the lead tank hits a mine, it does not get towed out of the way. The entire division stops. If the tank slips on black ice, if its driver panics and the machine jackknifes across the narrow road, the entire column seizes. There is no bypass. There is no maneuvering room. Behind every stalled tank, more tanks wait. Engines running. Burning fuel. Precious synthetic fuel manufactured under Allied air attack. Fuel that was rationed before the offensive even began. Blaskowitz sits in his command postreading the reports as they come in from the spearhead. The first invisible trap has already closed. The mountains are already eating the tanks and they have not yet reached a single American gun position. General Alexander Patch, commander of the U.S. 7th Army, understands his position with the clarity of a professional facing impossible odds. He cannot hold his thin line against the weight of the German assault. His divisions are too scattered, too desperate, too outnumbered to mount a defense that will break the German advance. But he does not need to hold. He makes a calculation that is cold and elegant and absolutely correct. He trades space for time. He pulls his units back to the fortifications of the old Maginot Line and the defensible river positions, creating a series of fallback lines that transform the terrain into a funnel deeper and deeper into the mountains, closer and closer to the prepared defensive positions, where the geometric advantage swings away from the tanks and toward terrain itself. This is where Thiesken technical failure of Nordwind is born. It is what might be called the geometric trap. The entire doctrine of German tank warfare is built on a single principle: long-range firepower. The Panther's gun, the optics of the tank, the training of the crew, all of it is optimized for engagement at 2,000 meters from distances where the American gun cannot touch you, from ranges where German technical superiority means absolute dominance. But in the dense forests of the Vosges, forests that have grown for centuries, dense with pine and hardwood, thick with the accumulated growth of half a millennium, visibility rarely exceeds 200 meters. At 200 meters, the Panther's technical advantage evaporates like breath in winter air. At 200 meters, a bazooka team hidden behind a pine tree is just as lethal as a battalion of Shermans. At 200 meters, the complex calculation of armor and firepower simplifies to a single brutal fact: who sees whom first and who shoots first. Consider the battle for Wingen-sur-Moder. The SS Mountain Division troops, elite light infantry, perfect for this terrain, infiltrate the medieval town in darkness and capture American supplies and American positions. They are experienced soldiers. They are trained for exactly this kind of fighting, but they need armor to hold the position against the inevitable American counterattack. Blaskowitz orders the Panzers to advance into the town. The lead Panther enters the narrow streets. Medieval stone buildings press in from both sides. The gun barrel, 4 meters of steel hanging out from the front of the hull, is too long for the street. The barrel scrapes against stone walls. The driver is fighting the machine just to keep it straight. The ice makes steering a nightmare. The turret rotation is powered by the engine, and in a confined space, surrounded by buildings that hide American bazooka teams, the crew is blind and claustrophobic and trapped. An American bazooka team is waiting around a corner, hidden in shadows, waiting for exactly this moment. They fire. The shape-charged warhead punches through the rear armor. The Panther erupts in flammes. The radio crackles with controlled calm. Panther down in Wingen, requesting support. The second Panther tries to flank through an alley. It gets stuck. Its width is too much for the narrow space. Another bazooka shot. Another tank burning. Village after village. The same story repeats. The Panzers being geometrically dismantled by the simple fact that their width does not fit the space available, that their gun barrels are too long, that their armor means nothing when the enemy is hidden in the rubble of a destroyed building 50 meters away, close enough to touch. Blaskowitz watches the reports, tank losses mounting, not to American armor, not to superior tactics, but to the simple geometry of a French village street. The master race of engineering is defeated by the geometry of medieval town planning. While the tanks are dying in the towns, something else is happening in the valleys. The U.S. Army is introducing the German panzers to what the Americans call industrial volume. The Germans possess terrifying weapons, 88mm guns and neighbor rocket launchers. Weapons that have earned their reputation through years of brutal combat against every enemy they have faced. But they have a fatal limitation that no German general can overcome. Every shell has to be counted. Every round is rationed. The supply lines are being strafed by P-47 Thunderbolts every time the sky clears, which means that every round fired is a round that might not be replaced. General Patch's artillery has no such restriction. The U.S. 7th Army possesses unlimited ammunition. The Army has the VT fuse, the proximity fuse, a secret American weapon that detonates shells in the air above enemy positions. German soldiers have no defense against this. They cannot hide from an explosion hanging above their heads. The shrapnel rains down from above with no countermeasure available. But the factor that matters most is simply the weight of fire. In the valleys around Rupert's Villa and Hatton, the Germans concentrate their forces for the breakthrough. This is correct tactical doctrine. Concentration force? Blaskowitz watches the reports coming in from his division commanders. Battalion after battalion assembles in the drawers, preparing to assault the American positions on the high ground. They are ready. The attack is about to be launched. The breakthrough is about to happen. Then the radio goes silent. U.S. forward observers positioned on the high ground, sometimes in the abandoned turrets of the Maginino Line itself, call in fire missions to corps-level artillery. 155mm long toms, 8-inch howitzers located kilometers away. Thieskens turn their barrels south and pour thousands of tons of high explosives into the narrow valleys. The rock faces of the Vosges amplify the shelling. A shell hitting a tree bursts into wood splinters that act like secondary shrapnel. A shell hitting rock bounces fragmentation back and forward and into ravines where German soldiers are trying to take cover. The German infantry is not fighting a battle. They are enduring an industrial excavation process. The Battle of Hedden-Ritterhofen lasts 12 days, January 9th through January 21st, and it becomes one of the greatest tank battles of the entire war. The 21st Panzer Division finally reaches open ground and clashes with the U.S. 14th Armored Division. On paper, the Panther should dominate. Superior gun, superior armor, superior tank in every technical measure. But the American tanks are not operating in isolation. They are operating within a matrix of artillery. Each American infantry division brought around 48 field howitzers of its own, and behind them corps and army artillery added heavy guns that could reach into any valley that could deliver fire onto any position with mathematical precision. The German commanders trained in the elegant precision of maneuver warfare are paralyzed by the sheer blunt force of the American logistical machine. They are experiencing something that no amount of armor can defend against. The mathematics of industrial warfare, where the volume of fire matters more than the precision of execution, where industrial capacity defeats tactical brilliance. By January 20th, the offensive has stalled completely, not from lack of will. The German soldiers still have will, not from lack of ammunition. The Germans still have bullets and shells, not from broken machines or destroyed tanks, but from the dashboard needle. Operation Nordwind was launched with a fuel reserve calculated for a single scenario, victory. The entire offensive was built on an assumption that German tanks would break through the American lines, drive west toward the fuel dumps near Sava and Haguenau, and capture them intact. This was Hitler's gamble. The entire operation bet everything on stolen American gasoline. But Blaskowitz knew the mathematics from the beginning. On a paved road traveling at constant speed, a Panther tank burns roughly 2.8 L of fuel per kilometer. But in the rough, snow-covered ground of the Vosges, climbing steep grades, navigating icy roads, constantly revving the engine to free stuck tracks, that consumption spikes to over 7 L per kilometer. The delay in the mountain passes, those traffic jams where tanks idled for hours while recovery crews worked to free disabled vehicles, burn fuel at 5 L hour just to maintain engine temperature in the cold. The constant revving to power the turret, to rotate the guns, to maintain radio contact with higher command. All of it burned the reserves before the tanks even reached the main battle line. The artillery bombardment that followed only accelerated the consumption. Engines screaming, constantly working against the blast waves and shock. By January 22nd, fresh German Panzers are sitting silent in the forests of Alsace. They are fully armed. Their crews are trained and ready. The guns could still fire. The ammunition is still loaded. The armor is still intact, but the tanks are dead weight. The needle on the fuel gauge is on empty. The engines will not start. The machines become static pillboxes. The U.S. forces, realizing that the Germans have stopped moving, simply maneuver around them or pound them with artillery until the crews, out of options and out of fuel and out of hope, bail out of the hatches and run. It is the ultimate humiliation for the Panzerwaffe, the most advanced tank in the world. Defeated not by superior American armor, not by brilliant American tactics, but by an empty fuel tank, defeated by mathematics. On January 25, 1945, the order comes to halt Operation Nordwind. The offensive has failed. The cost is staggering. The Germans have suffered 22,000 casualties. The Americans roughly 14,000, but the strategic cost is fatal to Germany's future. The mobile reserves of the Third Reich, the last panzer divisions that could have defended the Rhine, that could have contested the Soviet advance in the east, that could have held the homeland when the Allies crossed the German frontier, have been ground to nothing in the mountains of Alsace. They are not coming back. General Blaskowitz was right from the beginning. The mountains did eat his army. He understood what Hitler refused to see, that in 1945, war was no longer about fighting spirit or the will of the Führer. It was not about who had the better tanks or the more experienced pilots or the superior courage of individual soldiers. It was an equation. Logistics times geography equals outcome. Industrial output divided by distance equals reality. The U.S. Army did not need better tanks than the Panther. They just needed roads that worked. They needed artillery that never stopped firing. They needed fuel that never ran out. They needed ammunition that flowed from factories thousands of miles away. Factories working day and night, factories that the Luftwaffe could not reach because German air power was already dead. Nordwind was the final proof that the German military machine, for all its technical brilliance, for all its engineering excellence, for all the individual courage of its soldiers, had become disjointed from the physical laws of war. They had built a race car for a track that did not exist. They had sent 45-ton predators into a cage designed by geography to trap them. And they had launched the offensive on fuel calculated for a victory that the mountains had already guaranteed would never come. General Blaskowitz watched it happen from his command post. He had warned them. The mountains were waiting. And in January 1945, the mountains won. Thanks for watching Tales of Valor. If you learned something new about how industrial systems defeat tactical courage, please like and subscribe for more forgotten World War II stories. Tell us in the comments. Would you rather command a Panther with no fuel or a Sherman with unlimited supply lines? Where are you watching from today? What other World War II stories should we cover next? Your engagement helps us continue bringing these untold narratives to light. Subscribe for more forgotten stories of World War II and the real lessons of industrial warfare. We explore history through the lens of those who lived it. German commanders discovering why courage could not defeat systems. Japanese officers realizing that tactical excellence meant nothing against industrial supremacy. American soldiers understanding that wars are won in factories, not on battlefields. Keep history alive. We'll see you in the next.